Hello fellow modelers, Bruce here. As I continue to do some scenery work on the layout, I'm about to create a little scene where I would like to depict a small homestead near the side of the railroad, a modest house, perhaps a large shed or a small barn, a couple outbuildings, that kind of thing. And although I have dozens of structures that I saved from my previous layout, I find I really only have one house among all those built kits, and it's a rather large one and certainly would not fit the little homestead idea that I have in mind. So I looked on this shelf of shelves that contains dozens and dozens of kits that I haven't built yet, and I found one that I had bought, probably at least 8 years ago, a little laser art kit, which is a laser cut out of wood, a tiny house, probably 4 rooms, front porch, kind of nice looking little structure, and it depicts what was known as a kit house back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There were a lot of firms that sold plans for small houses, and when you bought the plans, they could supply all the lumber and everything that was needed to complete the house. And this one is a kit that was called the Drayton House, D-R-A-Y-T-O-N, and it was actually sold by Aladdin, which was a company working out of Michigan that would sell these plans, and then all the lumber and masonry and everything else. So yeah, Bay City, Michigan, up on by the thumb of Michigan. So I'm about to build this because I'm getting ready to complete that scene, and this is rather typical of the small laser cut kits. Here you have the 4 walls cut out, and with the windows cut out and the door opening cut out and so forth, and it's the type of slot and tab construction, and it is clapboard. These would be the roof sub panels. These are probably for the porch, the railings and stuff on the porch, and then the windows, doors, and all the trim. So what I'll do first, while everything is still attached to their carrying sheets, is take it out to the garage and with a rattle can give everything a primer coat of whatever I pick up, probably light gray, although I have other color primers too, but probably I'll do light gray. And on those where I can, such as on these sheets, I can spray the front and the back, and that minimizes warping. On this sheet, the back is going to be adhesive, so I'm not going to spray the back. I'll just leave it covered and then later peel and stick. And yeah, I'll just document this quick build, and it's not often that you see me build a small kit, and I thought this would be a good example. All right, talk to you soon. Okay, quick update on the small laser art structure house build. As I mentioned in the last video, I went off and used a rattle can to put a primer coat of, in this case, gray on all of the subwalls. And I did that. You can see some overspray of the darker gray here. So once that was dry, I went back and I decided to use a lighter gray on the walls of the actual house, and I used Floquil CN Canadian National Gray number 17, which is a light gray. I still have some Floquil paints left, and I use it on these laser cut structure walls to minimize warpage. The water-based paints, which unfortunately most of us have to use now, do tend to warp these. You can minimize the warpage in 2 ways. One, get a lot of the paint off your brush before you put it on the wall so it doesn't soak the walls with water. So light coats is one way. The second way is paint both sides. So while you're painting the front, paint the back of the same walls, and then set them up like this to dry, and you will minimize the warping. But I'm using an oil-based paint here, a solvent-based paint, and no warpage. So light gray, and I'm not going to put a second coat because if some of the other undercoat bleeds through, that's a positive because I want to look like it's been painted a while ago. And I went with maroon, again using a flow quill paint. In this case, the label came off, but it's Erie Lackawanna Maroon, and put a coat of that on all of the trim. The windows, the doors, the trim that'll go around the roof and the porch and so forth. All the porch trim is also done in the maroon. What I left in the darker gray from the spray paint would be the decking for the porch, the steps for the going up onto the porch, and the side of the steps. Those are dark gray. Gray paint for steps and porch decking was very, very common back in the 40s and 50s. And I'm going to leave the decking that color. So everything is painted now. Once it's dry, I can start the assembly. Talk to you again soon. The paint is dry. It is time to begin the assembly. The instructions say to punch these out of the walls, out of the carriers, clean off any little burrs and so forth with your sanding stick. And then they would like you to assemble the walls together first, and then put the windows into those walls. I do suggest that you test fit each one to make sure that they go in easily, but I prefer to put the window assemblies and the door assembly into the walls while they're flat on my work surface, and so that's what I'm going to do. Each window assembly has 4 distinct parts to it. I've already cut out the individual sashes and the overall window frame on one of them, and then there's the outside trim and a windowsill for each one. Taking these off of their carrier, you just take your hobby knife with a number 11 blade and very carefully, on top of a cutting mat, go around each of the, in this case, window frames, until you can lift it out. They're very fragile, very thin, and as I say, they do still have the peel and stick on it on the back. And then each side has at least one place where they were held to the carrier, and so you want to quickly give each side a file like this, again being very careful how you handle them. And once you get that to your satisfaction, go on to the next. So I'm going to take all the pieces of the windows and the door out, clean them up, then put the glazing in, and then assemble those components into windows and doors, and then install them into the walls. All right, be back again soon. Okay, quick update before I start putting the glazing into the window frames. By the way, these individual frames are for the lower sash. So we're going to glaze those and then glaze the upper sash and then put them together. There's all the pieces out and all the nibs have been filed off. If you can hold these window sills, and there's 4 of them here, I got one other down on my sanding stick, I'll show you in a second. If you can hold those in your fingers and sand them without snapping them or without sanding all the skin off of your fingers, well then you're a better man than me, Gunga Din, because I couldn't do it. So let me show you what I did do. Okay, here's my sanding stick. I am always buying tweezers, and at one point I bought these rather large curved tweezers. Don't use them much, but this was the perfect time to use them. So I got the windowsill in between the prongs of the tweezers. Just put a little pressure down and went back and forth over the sanding stick, turned it over, did the same thing, and got the rather obvious nibs sanded off of those windowsills. So just a little trick. All right, be back after the glazing. I don't want to belabor the windows, but they are the fussy part of the construction of this type of laser cut building that has also laser cut the windows and doors. I much prefer a kit that cuts the openings for you and then supplies plastic window castings. But this does a fairly credible job. So I have one installed. I just want to again just show you one of the intermediate steps. And I will say this. They claim that the adhesive on the back will hold everything together. I don't trust it. I will only use it to put the glazing in the window, nothing else. And what I do is I put a little bit of glue. You can see my glue stick over here, my toothpick and my applicator. I put a little bit of glue all around the back of the window frame, even after I peel this protective covering off and let the sticky show. So I peel that off, put a couple dabs of glue very sparingly all the way around, then apply the window frame to the outside of the building and press down. Then I come around the back, and I think you can still somewhat see in the corners here of these windows, I put just a little bit of glue, hold everything in place. I feel much better reinforcing that. These are so thin, there's very little, and your fingers touch it and some of the adhesive comes off. Be safe, put some glue in place. Now, as to assembling the window frames, putting the bottom window sash into place is not too bad. Just try to get it in place here and push it down. And that's all there is to it. Having put the two pieces of window sash together, I don't assemble these the way they suggest in the instructions. I take the sash, put it into the window opening from behind, push it down so that it's flush with the front wall. Just double check it. And take just a little dab of my white glue and put some into each corner just to kind of hold it. Their process depends on the adhesive that's on the back of the window trim that you're going to put on the front here to hold everything in place, and I quite frankly just don't trust it. So that's in from the back now. I'll let that dry a little bit, then I'm going to turn it over and peel the backing off of the window trim and put it around the window. They have you peel this off, peel off the adhesive on the back, and then put it over the window, letting it stick out in all the directions by a little bit. It overlaps a little, and then inserting this from the front. I just do it differently. Up to you. Okay, that's it. I'm going to finish up these windows now. Okay, just a few tips before I go any further here. Test fit everything before gluing and before you go too far. Right, I'm test fitting these roof panels onto the walls. I haven't even glued all four walls together yet. What I found was I needed to do some significant sanding on these slots to get them to go over the tabs that are waiting for them. Also gives you the opportunity to make sure you know which side goes to the peak of the roof and which one goes down into the eaves of the roof, and label it. So I now have these so they'll fit over these tabs, and I have it labeled up and down. Also, by me writing on this side, this means it's the outside of the roof panel. So I'm going to take these off a minute. This one I'm going to do a little more sanding on, and I'm going to separate these again. So yeah, test fit. Second thing is, the instructions suggest when you glue the four walls together that you glue both side walls to one of the end walls, forming like a U. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can do it that way if you wish. I typically glue one end wall to one side wall, the other end wall to the other side wall, giving me two L's, and then glue the L's together. And the fact that these are so far apart, rather than both sides of the end wall, like it would be if you'd made the U the way they said. Doing it my way, I can glue this side, leaving this side free, and still have enough room to open this side up and put some glue in and finish the job up. So I'm going to glue this to this, let it dry, and then finally open it up a little bit, glue that side, and I'm ready to go. So again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's what you're used to. I'm just telling you what I normally do. I hadn't seen this initially when I opened the box and sorted through it. I thought it was actually part of the roofing. The roofing is some kind of vinyl material that looks like 3-tab shingles. And again, nothing wrong with those, but I'm not going to use them. These turn out to be brick or stone, depending on which way you paint it, for around the foundation. Now, I don't need any foundation on this side that has the door, because you're going to have the front porch there and it's going to be hidden. So they give you 2 long pieces and 1 short piece here for the 2 side walls and the rear wall. So I'm going to paint mine to look like brick, and the color I'll use is terracotta, Americana's terracotta from Deco Art. And I'm going to use the technique that I showed you in one of my previous videos using a cosmetic sponge. I'll put a little bit of the terracotta into my palette here, dip the sponge in, get most of it off of here by dipping it onto a paper towel, and then going straight down on here to get the terracotta so that it doesn't go into the grooves, which will leave this base color in the grooves, which will look like mortar. So I'm going to glue, and while the glue is drying, I'm going to color the foundation. Okay, those are next steps. Talk to you again. I would just like to document another deviation from the instructions. And I'm doing this because I'm deviating on what I'm going to do on the roof, as I already mentioned. The walls are now glued together. The roof panels are just sitting there. I mean, they're in place, but I haven't glued them yet. They fit fine, no gaps or anything. And I don't know if you can see it. I think you might be able to if I hold it in certain lights, but I've ruled off the roof with parallel lines just to act as a guide for when I install the cedar shake shingles that I'm going to put on. And as I've documented in one of my videos, I'm going to not use the adhesive that comes on the shingles because I don't trust it to not peel off a couple years down the road. I'm going to put on some number 465 3M transfer tape and install the shingles that way. That's much easier to do with the roof panels off, which is what I will do. Also, I'm going to let those shingles stick over just a little bit in all directions, and so when installing the trim, which the instructions tell you to do after you put the roof on, I am going to put it on now, so I don't crush any of the little overhang on the cedar shakes. So this is a piece of the trim. This happens to be for the rear wall. So I can now, with the roof in place, get that nice and snugged up against it, and it would look something like that. And then you can see that there's some of the siding showing. That's where the brick panels that I've already painted will go. So they will fit right below the trim. So that's kind of the plan. So I'm going to put the trim on before I put the roof on finally. Once the trim is on, certainly the side walls and the back wall. I don't know about the front wall yet because of the porch. I have to look. But once the trim is on, then I will take these roof panels off and put the shingles on and then reinstall. Okay, talk to you again soon. Alrighty, a quick update here. The basic structure is basically done except for weathering. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't want to use the vinyl type material that was provided in the kit for the roof. I'll save those. It's enough material here for some small sheds or whatever, and I'll probably use them. But what I did use was cedar shakes, straight cut cedar shakes from rail scale models. And they provide a nice ridge cap, which is nice. I just have to weather those yet. I did put the brick material around the three sides that are not covered by the front porch here. If I was going to do it again, I would probably have colored them gray to look like cut stone instead of brick color, but I'll still weather those and tone them down a little bit. And when they're on the layout, probably a lot of it will be covered by the grass, shrubberies, weeds, whatever I put around them. And the material was a little bit short, at least the way I installed them. I put them flush in the front where the porch will go, which leaves a gap here in the back. But again, some weeds or a little bush there and nobody will ever see it. That's going to be against the backdrop anyway. So all I have to put on yet is the front porch, which is a nice feature of this particular model. So I'll do that. I was happy that they put the brick for the foundation because one of my pet peeves is kits that don't provide any means of a foundation. All your buildings, except for very little sheds, shouldn't be sitting straight on the ground. The only thing they left out was any kind of smokestack or chimney, so I'll look in my box of spare parts and see what I have maybe to do that. Then a little weathering on that roof and it'll look pretty good. Okay, talk to you again when the porch is on. Okay, this cigar box has all my chimney and smokestack and air vent castings. Quite a few by different manufacturers. So digging through it, I found one that said it was from Alexander Scale Models. That looks like it fits the peak of that roof pretty darn good and does not overpower the model itself. So let me just zoom in a little bit and you'll see. So yeah, there's the chimney, and clean it up a little bit with a file and paint it chimney color. And by the time I put a little bit of tar around the base of it there, it'll look like it fits perfect. I think I'll go with that one. The designers really did a nice job with this front porch. It really looks very nice. Everything fit together perfectly. Really sets off this little house. I just have to put the steps in yet. For the roof here, I'm not going to put cedar shakes. There's a little downward pitch, but not significant. They in the real world would never put cedar shakes on something like that, so I'm going to put tar paper roof over the porch, put the steps on, the chimney, a little weathering, and that'll be it. Talk to you then. Well, there's the little laser art structures Drayton house built, and really a nice little kit. It fits the spot perfectly. Branch Line Train still offers the laser art structures, and they have a whole line of these catalog houses. And yeah, I think I'm going to have to get me another one. They're well engineered, the instructions were terrific. And, you know, the laser cut windows that I said I didn't prefer, if they were all designed as nicely as these and went together as nicely, I'd probably have a different opinion. But let me come around the other side a minute and just so you can see. So there's Mama on the porch, sweeping the porch, and Pop is out by the little shed. And yeah, this will fit the scene nicely when I get it all put together. I think I'm going to have to go online, and these are still available. I'm going to have to go online and get one of the other small catalog houses that they have. So yeah. Along the way, a number of my previous videos cover some of the techniques for weathering the roofing and putting the tar around the chimney, and you know, a couple of the other things. So I'll link them somehow, either in the description or elsewhere in the video. So thanks for following along. It was a nice little build. If you haven't done any laser cut structures, not a bad kit to start with. That porch really went together very nicely, which, you know, of all the things on the house would be the one that would give some people trouble, but not the way this was designed. Okay, talk to you again soon, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Only takes 10 seconds, doesn't cost you a dime, and helps my channel. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Okay, talk to you soon.